This next question is one that I really care about a lot, and that is, what are some things that can be done to get Lutheranism involved in the broader Christian conversation, such that when people think about different views on a theological topic, Lutheranism is one of the views that occurs to them? Yeah, this is a hugely important question. Because when people think about theology, or they're thinking about doctrine or doctrinal positions or what church they should go to, Lutheranism is not even an option that people even consider. People kind of know we exist because, yeah, you've probably driven by a Lutheran church at some point. You might have no idea what they believe, but there's no understanding of us as having any distinctive doctrine. There's really not a lot of, we don't have a presence like others do. And that's just the case within American Christianity, at least, is that people don't really know us and they don't know who we are. And the reason for that has nothing to do with our size. In reality, there are a lot more of us confessional Lutherans than there are confessional Reformed in the United States, which might be surprising because they have a very large voice, a very loud voice in the conversations that go on in Christianity in America. There are more of us, but nobody knows about us or knows we exist, or they kind of maybe are vaguely familiar. But when people are looking into doctrinal positions, where our positions aren't even considered at all. So, it's not an issue of number. So that's not the reason. So what's the reason for that before we get into kind of how we can mend that? There are a couple reasons. And I think one of them is just the fact that we have isolated ourselves as Lutherans from the rest of the Christian community in America. And some of that was for good reasons, in that, especially, confessional Lutherans, we are confessional, meaning we hold to the teachings of the Book of Concord. We believe those teachings are true. And so we don't have the same kind of open ecumenicism that other traditions do. Now, different confessional Lutheran church bodies have different takes on exactly how that works. But generally, we're not as open to, ecumenical, and not that we don't have ecumenical dialogues, and not that we don't work with other Christians, because I think we do and should, and I certainly do, and I think it's really important. But because the fact is, in America, when Lutherans first came over to the United States, the flavor of the U.S. religion was already Calvinistic. That's just kind of in the American soil, and so that's part of this too. Is Calvinism is just part of our founding, so it's been in American culture forever, since it began. And because Puritans are Calvinists, so Calvinism does inherently form the conversation of the United States in our religion. So when Lutherans came over to America, some found that there were compromises with the Reform. So Samuel Schmucker is the most common example, who went to Princeton Seminary, where a lot of Lutherans were getting educated because that just was the best theological seminary around, and we hadn't established our own yet. And Schmucker is convinced of some Reformed views. He tries to alter the Augsburg Confession and change what Lutherans actually really believed and confessed. And so it did tend to be the case that whenever Lutherans were with the Reformed and worshiping with the Reformed, what that resulted in was Lutherans losing their identity and becoming Reformed. This is what happened when you had forced union churches in the Prussian Union between Lutheran and Reformed. They were Reformed. This is what happens every time. So we have to protect our identity in our theology because we believe we're right. We believe our tradition is correct. And so because of that, we want to preserve that. So what Lutherans did was kind of isolated themselves, and we have, closed communion policies, but it's more than that. A lot of Lutheran settlements, especially in the Midwest, were Lutheran settlements. And so we weren't really interacting with a lot of the rest of Protestantism or evangelicalism. So what that did result in was kind of an attitude of hiding, I think, from others, and an attitude of just trying to protect ourselves and our doctrine, and not outwardly engaging. And so I think there's both good and bad. So the good is that the doctrine is preserved in a lot of ways. Not that we're never, trying to defend those things even within Lutheranism. But the bad is then we've cut ourselves off from conversation, and we've cut ourselves off in a way that's not healthy from other Christians. So I think the things that we can do, we have to do something. Okay, we have to do something. And I don't think the solution is we stay in our Germanic communities and try to go back to the way things were, in the 1950s, and just make everyone have as many kids as possible. And not that it's bad to have a lot of kids. I think that's very good. And I think the family is good. And I think large families are good. But we can't, I think to some people, that's the solution and that's it. I think there's a lot more we've got to do than just that. And especially with where our culture is today, we've got to face those realities and deal with it and do something. And there are a lot of Christians who I think need what Lutheranism has, but they don't know it exists. That's the situation I found myself in. So I really wanted that, and I found that. But when I found it, I just wondered, why haven't I heard about this? Why are these teachings so hidden? Why does nobody know about this? Everybody's talking about Calvinism, Arminianism, but nobody even knows there's some other option. It's just not even in people's radar at all. I mean, think about, well-known Christian figures in America. Are any of them Lutheran? I mean, the most well-known Lutherans would be, Gene Veith and John Warwick Montgomery, but, they're not well known to the extent of someone like Tim Keller or, Bishop Robert Barron or William Lane Craig or whatever. We have these so many very significant Christian figures, but they're not Lutheran. So what's how do we fix that? We certainly don't try to get our own megachurch pastors that can gain celebrity status, which is kind of how a lot of the rest of Christianity, well, everything works in America because that's just how we do things. That's not the solution. That's not good for a lot of reasons. But I think part of the solution is just being involved in organizations that include other Christians. That's what I'm a part of. I'm part of an organization that Christian Union. We do ministry on Ivy League campuses, and I'm the only Lutheran there, as far as I know. And it's not a church, but we work together with other Christians, and I feel like we have to be out there. We can't just isolate ourselves. So, and it is, I think, in a lot of ways hard to find a balance between, on the one hand, totally isolating ourselves, but then on the other hand, compromising our doctrinal stances and just promoting total unionism, which is certainly not what I'm advocating at all. But just having Lutheran professors teach at Christian universities, which is how Gene Veith had the influence that he's had, because he wasn't at a Lutheran university, and there are others that could do that as well. And some of it is just, I think, social media. We're not very good at marketing ourselves. Calvinists are great at marketing themselves. This is why the New Calvinism became a thing. And I know that's kind of died out. The New Calvinism, I think, like with Mark Driscoll's downfall, it kind of, I don't know. I feel like that cemented the end of that era of what was the New Calvinism. And so I don't see it in the same way anymore as I did then when I was in college. But we have never had anything like that. And first of all, I don't want what New Calvinism had, because what the New Calvinism had was not confessional Reformed thought getting popular, but megachurch guys who were influenced by Reformed thought getting popular. And we saw how that blew up with Mark Driscoll. So I don't want that. But we have to be more active in just getting our voice out there in public forums. I think YouTube, podcasts, these are great ways to do this. That's why I do what I do. And a lot of other people have been doing it too. There are a lot of people involved in podcasting and YouTube as well, and other things, who are Lutheran. A lot of them haven't stuck around. I've seen a lot of people, since I've been doing this, I've seen a lot of people just come and go. A lot of podcasts come and go. Most don't last very long. I've been doing this for quite a while now. I said recently, 7 years? I don't know. It's been a while that I've been doing this. But yeah, more of that. Part of it, honestly, is because our books are so expensive. I don't want to complain about CPH, because I appreciate a lot of what they put out. But it is a fact that they're prohibitively expensive. Also, if you look on things like Amazon, they don't even have a lot of CPH books in stock, or there aren't any images even of the cover of the book, because everything is sold through the website. It's almost like we've tried to isolate ourselves to like any public forum where you could just have a public face or reach more people. We just hide from that. For example, there's something called, here's a good example of this, called Right Now Media. And some of you know what this is. It's like supposed to be like Netflix for Bible studies, and basically churches buy this package, and everyone in the congregation gets access to whatever Bible studies are on there, and conference lectures and things like that. But I spoke to someone from that organization, and they told me that they had reached out to Lutheran churches, and they've reached out to CPH and others to try to get material on there. And it's just a downright refusal at all times to get anything from them on the platform. And these are the kind of things that I don't understand. And I'm not a business person. I don't know why CPH does what they do. And again, I'm very thankful for them. I don't mean to complain at all. But these kinds of things do make it seem like we're trying not to be found by people almost. So in just like public venues and platforms, Lutherans just aren't there. So we haven't put ourselves out there. And I'm a little piece of trying to do something about that, but I mean, I'm pretty insignificant as just one person. And so I would like to see this done by a lot more people. And I think it has been, and I think it is changing. I have seen a little bit more awareness of Lutherans, at least in the Reformed community. There seems to be a little more awareness recently. I don't know. But anyway, those are my thoughts for what they're worth. I don't have a great solution. But also, I don't want to just blame people for doing things wrongly. I think some of it is just Calvinism has defined the conversation in America, because that's the Christianity that we had when people first settled in this nation.